Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Football on Forever Sports for today's Premier League Week 5 preview. As the Premier League starts to really sort of heat up after the first couple of games, we're still obviously very early on in the season, but with an international break already underway, the Champions League is underway, we're now starting to sort of gauge where teams are at after the first sort of couple of games. Obviously in the first sort of 3 games before the international break, it's a lot of players coming back from preseason, a lot of teams that need time gelling, but squads have now been together and been playing for pretty much over a month. So in terms of chemistry, in terms of sort of tactics and formations that we're starting to see, especially from maybe some of the newer sides and teams with new managers, we've already seen quite a lot of progress in the first sort of few weeks. And whilst, we only sort of make predictions in terms of genuine title contenders, in sort of November, December, when you get towards the middle of the season, it's so far, there have already been a couple of very decent starts, but every single team has already dropped points, which is quite interesting. No team going 4 from 4, every single team having drawn at least one game or lost games. We've got some big names who are, well, one big name really in the bottom half of the tail. And apart from that, your usual sort of regular top 6 sides have had relatively good starts, as well as a couple of lower sides who've also gone to good starts. And as a side who maybe, relegation is a genuine sort of issue and something that you're looking to avoid, if you can get yourself up to a decent sort of 12, 15 points after the first, 7, 8 games, it suddenly makes your entire season look so much easier, and you can sort of get to Christmas, get to January and think, well, we're pretty much saved relegation already. Now it's about how high can we push? What other things can we push forward? And I think the likes of a Brentford and a Brighton, who are sort of sitting in the top 10, they'll be quite happy with the start they've had, especially Brentford, first season in the Premier League. Before we look at the table and the fixtures and how it's sort of all lining up, which players are available, which players are suspended, please do smash a like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. So if we have a look at the Premier League table, this is how it currently stands. We have got 4 sides currently tied at the top of the table. 10 points. Manchester United currently ahead on goal difference, having scored 11 goals and conceded 3. So they actually tied technically with Chelsea, who've scored more goals and conceded once. The goal difference was both 8, but United having scored more goals. I assume that's sort of why they're sitting at the top of the league there. But Manchester United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Everton, all on 10 points. City, 1 point behind them on 9, as well as Brighton and Spurs. Spurs were 3 from 3, if you remember, and then got outdone last weekend against Crystal Palace, which is a pretty bad result when you think they've gone up to such a fly, having beaten Man City. But when you beat Man City and you lose to Crystal Palace, it's exactly the same as losing to Man City and beating Crystal Palace. So whilst people always talk about there are some games which are more important, at the end of the day, you have got 38 games. Every single game is 3 points if you win, 1 point if you draw. And when you start stumbling against the smaller sides that you should be beaten, it kind of nullifies the really good results you can get from big teams. At the end of the day, you don't necessarily have to beat the top 2 sides throughout the entire competition, but if you're making sure that you are beating every single side, lower than 10th and those sort of sides, and you're not stumbling against them, it makes challenging for the league, challenging for titles much, much easier. Apart from that, West Ham have got quite a good start to the season. They've got 2 wins and 2 draws, so they've yet to lose a game so far. Themselves and the top 4 are the only teams who haven't lost a game yet, and they are up against Manchester United, which should be one of the better clashes of the weekend. Elsewhere, Arsenal, after getting their first win of the season, moved up to 16th place with 3 points. Not been a particularly good start for Leeds, who have gone lost, draw, lost. So they also need to sort of sort themselves out, and Newcastle at the bottom there. And then Norwich are currently pointless after 4 games. And it's a side which always seems to come to the Premier League and never seems to look like hanging around on Norwich. We talked a little bit about the last night in terms of our Premier League show, talking about the fact that sometimes teams, as much as it's admirable to come in and try and play an attractive brand of football, you have to try and start finding what's going to keep you in the Premier League, what's going to keep you around. And I think that's something that Norwich and Daniel Farke are still yet to sort of really, really find out. In terms of the fixtures, what makes it so interesting is fixture number 1, which is tonight, is Newcastle versus Leeds. So if we're looking at the table, they're both sitting on, so Leeds are on 2 points, Newcastle on 1. So a chance for both those teams to try and sort of further themselves away from relegation zone, but also playing, 2 teams playing against each other which aren't in the best form. So if you look at the odds, for example, 3.1 for Newcastle, 2.25 for Leeds. So Leeds in theory is expected to win, but never write off Newcastle. In terms of their head-to-head record, Newcastle have won 9, Leeds have won 5 and drawn 4. Bielsa, however, has had the run over Steve Bruce quite often. In terms of the lineups and stuff like that, players who are missing for Newcastle, they've got a bit of an injury crisis at the moment. There's no Ryan Fraser, there's no John Joe Salvi, no Callum Wilson who continues with his injury strikes, no Joe Willock, who's doubtful, is a big blow if he does not play. And then Dubravka as well. So players to watch out for. Alan St. Maximin is the Newcastle star at the moment. Obviously players like Willock, if he does play, will be very important. You've got your long star, Mikel Almiron, and then Joe Linton. But it all just seems to be sort of Alan St. Maxim in terms of players. You look into that squad and you think he could be doing it at a big club. He looks like a proper borderline. Somebody who's got the caliber to be a top player. Looking at the Leeds side, interesting to sort of see how they go. A couple of new faces on the bench that they're still trying to sort of work out how to sort of fit it all in. Obviously, Patrick Bamford had a stormy season last season, as well as Rafinha, who looks really good. Rodrigo's a very nice player, but new acquisition Dan James from Manchester United will be looking to try and force his way into the side. Came off the bench last weekend. Players suspended, obviously, no Pascal Strulik, who got red carded after his challenge against Liverpool youngster Harvey Elliott last weekend, who actually came out and said he disagreed with the red card. No Robin Koch as well. But it's a pretty standard sort of Leeds side in terms of who we'll see operating there. In terms of tomorrow, we're going to have Wolves versus Brentford. Brentford have had such a good start to the season that if they can get a win over Wolves, it would be massive for them. As you can see, they're not favoured to do it in terms of the odds. Wolves are the best, the favoured side. But if you look at a head-to-head record, it's pretty even. And Brentford, I think, will be flying with a lot of confidence, whereas the Wolves have, lost 3 and then won the last game. So they haven't had the best starts of the season. In terms of lines, in terms of who is missing for Wolves, no Pedro Neto, which continues to be a very big blow for Wolves, as well as Johnny Otto. But apart from that, a relatively full-strength squad. Adama Traore has been scintillating with ball at his feet, but he hasn't been able to sort of produce that final product just yet. I think he's averaging almost 10 successful dribbles per game. Which is basically 1 every 10 minutes. In fact, it's a little bit more than 1 every 10 minutes. So he's looked really, really good, but hasn't been able to really sort of bring that final product, which has always been the issue with Adama Traore. There's never been any sort of question about his ability to get past defenders, to get into good positions, but he hasn't really managed to, first of all, score goals or be able to really service Raul Jimenez as much. But Francisco Trinchao looks like a really good signing. Obviously, Ruben Neves and Jean Martinho is a very solid midfield. The good side is Wolves. And look, I think Bruno Lage will take a bit of time to sort of establish his identity. They've got the players to do something. Then Burnley versus Arsenal. I mean, you look at the head-to-head, but Dyche has actually had it over Mikel Arteta. So when he's come against him. So look, at the end of the day, Burnley are a very tough side to break down, who actually are scoring more sort of goals than they used to. You look at Burnley sitting at the bottom there, but they have scored. I mean, I know it sounds weird in 3 goals, but they have managed to find the net a couple of times already this season, which does help their effort. They're a side which if they were 5 draws, they're often 0-0s through it all the way. And if you look at their sort of League Cup and stuff like that, they are sort of looking a little bit more of a goal threat than maybe previous before, but obviously defensively haven't been as solid as they would like. I think you can argue they're probably both in very similar sort of form, but Arsenal got the quality and they looked a lot better last weekend. Burnley, no major issues. Conor Roberts and Kevin Long maybe being sort of doubts the weekend. Apart from that, a pretty settled team. James Larkowski and Ben Mee are the 2 very solid centre backs, and then you've got the likes of Nick Pope, who's probably the best goalkeeper, probably the best English goalkeeper at the moment. Doesn't quite get into the England squad at the moment, but on form, I think he's probably playing a lot better than Pickford is. And then the threats up front are Ashley Barnes, Chris Wood, a classic 4-4-2, as Sean Dyche does love it. But Dwight McNeil is a very exciting player worth watching. For Arsenal, they look much better defensively with Gabriel and Ben White as the centre partnership, which we will expect to see them grow. Kieran Tierney is obviously a very good left back. And it was a pretty nice debut for him to Mayasu, who looked pretty solid. So hopefully for Arsenal fans, and for the sake of the likes of Coelho in our Premier League show last night, they will be able to sort of go on a bit of a run. They do have all their sort of big players back. Thomas Partey is starting next to Lokonga. You've got Odegaard available, Pepe, Saka. The only players out are Alneny and Rob Holding. So all the complaints in the early sort of stages and the justification for the bad run of form was they didn't have players. They don't have that argument anymore. They've got their players back. They've got Liverpool versus Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace will be buzzing after their victory over Spurs, but you do expect Liverpool to go and get the job. And in fact, I think it is Liverpool's weekend really to try and put pressure on. They are playing before Manchester United and Spurs Spurs and Chelsea. Chelsea and Manchester United obviously being the two teams, along with Everton, who are playing Aston Villa, but the two sort of big sort of title contenders who have gone off quite quickly. They've both got tough matches. Chelsea are away against Spurs, and Man United are away against West Ham, who are undefeated this season. So it's a massive opportunity for Liverpool to try and sort of put some pressure on and say, right, we've got all our 3 points. You come and match me, or else we will be ahead of you already in the title race. In terms of suspension stuff like that, there's no Firmino nor Harvey Elliott, who's out for a while. Nico Williams is a doubt, but apart from that, you expect the front three of Jota, Sadio Mane, and Mohamed Salah. Jordan Henderson scored a goal in the Champions League midweek, and we'll take a lot of confidence out of that. Virgil van Dijk, Joel Matip will probably start together in defence, and then Addison, we know, is one of the best goalkeepers. And then you've got Trent and Andrew Robertson. In terms of Palace, missing Eze, which is not great with Ferguson, but it was a fantastic debut for Edouard, who came off the bench last weekend. Interesting to see if he actually might force himself a bit of a start this weekend, or if they will sort of back Jordan Ayew, Christian Benteke, and Wilfried Zaha, which is what they went with last weekend. Patrick Vieira's had a decent start to life in the Palace. I mean, it showed a little bit, but that match against Spurs, I think, will have sort of proved a lot. Well, not necessarily silenced a lot of doubts, but just sort of kept them away for a while. You can see he's trying to establish quite an attacking brand of football. He wants to play positive football. It will take time to come good and to sort it all out. But you can see, so far, credit for the effort, and he does look like he's trying to be quite positive. Manchester City versus Southampton. Expect Manchester City to get the job done. Southampton have had a pretty poor start to the season. They haven't won a game yet. They lost the first and they went on 3 draws. So it's not been good times for Ralph Hasenhüttl. The head-to-head record does not bode well either. You look at the odds, 1.13 for City to win, 17-1 for Southampton to go and get the job. In terms of City, the players out, there's no Laporte who's doubtful, as is John Stones, which is why we saw Nathan Ake starting in the midweek in the Champions League, where he actually scored a goal. But we could see Laporte coming back this weekend. Cancelo, Kyle Walker, very good wing backs there. And then Ferran Torres will have to continue to try and provide goals. The likes of Jack Grealish, Gabriel Jesus, or Sterling, or Bernardo Silva. De Bruyne has featured this weekend, so we could also, this week, so we could see him as well. It's at the end of the day, City are going to find goals from all around the park. You're looking at this lineup here, which doesn't include De Bruyne, Phil Foden, Raheem Sterling, and I think they'll be expecting as many goals from Bernardo Silva, as they will from a Gundogan, as they will, maybe not as many as Grealish, but they do expect goals everywhere in the park. For Southampton, the biggest issue with Southampton, I think, is their squad. If they don't have Shane Long available, Stuart Armstrong's out there, Walcott's out, it's just the attacking threat, which they're sort of just lacking at the moment. Losing Danny Ings, Shea Adams is a good player, but he's not quite Danny Ings, and he needs more sort of support. James Ward-Prowse, obviously from the set piece, will always be dangerous, but no Vestergaard in the box has been a huge asset that they've lost this week, this season, in terms of being able to find someone in the box to try and put a head on it. Then we've got Norwich versus Watford. The two promoted clubs there. As I said, Norwich off to a terrible start so far. And I'm not expected to. Well, it's pretty even in terms of who's expected to win. In terms of lineups, for players, for non-Norwich fans, players to look out for, the likes of Billy Gilmore, the Chelsea loanee, as well as Brandon Williams, who's there on loans. Very nice players with the likes of Max Aarons. Pukki's a very nice player to watch. No Sam Bryan and Jonas and or Zimmerman out there, and then Placheta and Josh Harden are doubts for the weekend. And in terms of Watford, Josh King leading the line these days. Musa Sissoko, they've made some decent signings at Watford. They made quite a few signs. Ismail Assar looks like is still a very good player to watch. It will be quite an important player. But the likes of Danny Rose, they've got quite a lot of experience in their squad this season. No João Pedro for this weekend, and Kiko Firmino is a potential doubt. Look, probably not one of the sort of most attractive games to watch this weekend in terms of their current form, but again, two sides have just come up to the Premier League looking to try and stay up. It's very important that either of them sides can try and get one over on the other. Finally, Aston Villa versus Everton should be a very good game. In fact, Villa are tipped betting-wise to do the business. I think that probably comes down to the players available. Rafa Benitez has gotten 2 over on Dean Smith. Head-to-head is very, very similar as well. So it's 2 very even teams. Everton are sitting on 10 points. They've had a fantastic start to the season, despite a couple of injury concerns. Aston Villa have got a loss, win, draw, and a loss, so a little bit inconsistent there. But if we look at the lineups, I think that we've got a Villa side which are building something, and I hope that they signed exceptionally well when Grealish did actually go. So no Trezeguet, but and Buendia being a bit doubtful. But apart from that, Danny Ings, Ollie Watkins, Ashley Young, Douglas Luiz, very, very good players, and they've got a very nice back line. I really like Matty Cash as a right back. I think he's very, very solid. Tyrone Mings, obviously an England international. Emiliano Martinez is one of the best goalkeepers in the league, or was last season anyway. For Everton, a couple of players who are missing, big players, Calvert-Lewin and Fabian Delph, both of you missing are big losses, and James Rodriguez, the situation just doesn't currently help. But we did see a back three of Yeremina, Michael Keane, Ben Godfrey, Seamus Coleman, and Lucas Digne during the Europa. And I think that's probably, it's probably a pretty good idea. In the last game, we saw a back three from them, and I think it was a good idea in terms of being defensively pretty solid and freeing the likes of Lucas Digne, who's probably one of the best left boots in the Premier League. Alan and Decorah are very solid players on the ball. Richarlison, I think, is world class. I genuinely do think he is world class, and I could see him playing at any side in the world. Andros Townsend didn't score last weekend, so they'll be hoping he can try and get onto the sheet again. And then Damari Gray, the new acquisition as well, will probably be down the left until we can get Calvert-Lewin back, and then they'll probably shift Richarlison back off to the left. Brighton, who've had a really good start to the season up against Leicester, so quite a big test for them. However, look at the odds show the respect and how well Brighton are playing, really, in terms of it being pretty even as to who will get the result. Brighton have started very well this season and are sitting over here in sixth with 9 points after 4 games. They haven't lost just the one game. Scored 5 and conceded 3, so it's been pretty solid for Brighton. Back three is working quite well. Basuma's a fantastic CDM. Adam Lallana will hopefully try and get more minutes this season. And then it comes down to the goal scorers. Can Neil Maupay and Danny Welbeck continue a bit of form and go on a bit of run? Obviously, Lamptey at the moment, the former Chelsea right back, which is a huge loss to the Seagulls. In terms of Leicester, coming off a 2-2 draw against Napoli in the midweek, Brendan Rodgers was very impressed with his performance, saying that it showed that they can compete. They've signed, as they always do, they've signed very intelligent players. No Wesley Fofana, but they have brought in Yannick Vestergaard and Soyuncu, who's a very solid and very physical two centre backs. Castagna and Ryan Bertrand are very solid wing backs. I think the issue with Leicester is probably need a little bit more from the likes of James Maddison and Harvey Barnes to try and get them scoring more goals. A couple of players out: no James Justin, no Wesley Fofana. Evans is doubtful. Oyeus Perez is currently on suspended. But it's you kind of expect Leicester to be able to do the job, but don't write off the Seagulls. In fact, as a betting man, this 2.7 odds for Brighton win is not the worst odds in the world. Neither is 2.75 for Leicester to win, to be honest. So it's a game that could go either way. I don't think it'll be a draw. I'll be surprised if it's a draw, just because I think that it's one of those sort of games where I think we will probably see a result. I think it could go either way. I'd be surprised if it is like a 0-0. I do see these teams scoring, and I do potentially see some goals in this game. And then we've got West Ham versus Manchester United. Now West Ham are on a really, really good run. I mean, we look at the standings. They're currently 8 points of a possible 12. They beat. If we look at West Ham's results, they got off their Europa League competition off to a really good start. Where are the games here? There we go. So, got off to a good start against Newcastle with a 4-2 win. They then thrashed Leicester 4-1, which is a big result. We're held by Crystal Palace, which is why I was saying the Crystal Palace have been off to a reasonable start. I think it's frustrating. They'll be frustrated that they got held by Southampton 0-0. They would have liked to have won that game. But then 2-0 against Dynamo Zagreb in the UEFA Europa, which was a very solid result. No Mikel Antonio, though, this weekend, which is a pretty big loss for West Ham. He is suspended with the red card, but apart from that, they've pretty much got a full squad to pick from. Declan Rice has looked really, really good. Scored a fantastic goal on the weekend. So we're gonna have to see if the likes of Ben Rama can come through and play well. Vlasic as well, the new signing, attacking midfield. They have to try and pull through. In terms of Manchester United, well, at the end of the day, it's you've got players that like Ronaldo who have scored 3 and 2 so far. Paul Pogba's got 7 assists so far. Bruno Fernandes is scoring and assisting for fun at the moment. And Mason Greenwood also started the season off pretty well. So expect goals from Manchester United. They have scored the most goals in the Premier League, and they are looking very dangerous in front of goal. There's still no Marcus Rashford, no Edison Cavani, Alex Telles as well. It should be returning soon. Scott McTominay, who had a fantastic game against Leeds on the opening day, should be back from injury pretty soon as well. Aaron Wan-Bissaka got sent off during the Champions League, will be available. The sort of continued question is, will we sort of see Jadon Sancho starting, Paul Pogba back in the middle, like we saw last weekend, or will we see a midfield duo of Fred, Matic, or if McTominay is as fit, does he come in there as well? And then the final game of the weekend, we'll see Tottenham taking on Chelsea. The first time these managers have only met once, and it was a draw. In terms of the odds, you can see so Spurs are not expected to win this game. Chelsea very much the favourites, and Spurs, their squad is a bit of an issue at the moment. No Tanganga, who got a red card. Son is coming in with an injury. Could be back in the next couple of weeks. But no Christian. I mean, the situation around Christian Romero and Lo Celso, the two Argentinian players, are a bit of a worry. And then apparently Bergwijn and Dele Alli, Lucas Moura, all potentially being doubts. So at the moment, it's a bit of sort of how much can Harry Kane carry the side? Oliver Skip's a nice player, but not quite sort of the quality you need. Emil Højbjerg, I think, is one of the best players, one of the best midfielders in the league. So it's not a Spurs side, with Dyer at the injured and Tanganga being out. They were sort of a little bit short on defensive options anyway, and they'll be even more so this weekend. For Chelsea, they got Pulisic out, and N'Golo Kante's a doubt, but this is just a very well-oiled machine at the moment. We saw Ziyech coming in for Kai Havertz during the midweek. But I expect to see Kai Havertz start. Romelu Lukaku is scoring goals for fun. He looks like a whole different striker to the one that we saw last time he was at Chelsea all those years ago. Between his West Brom stints, Everton stints, and Manchester United, and then Inter Milan stints, he's become the complete striker. And it will be a race, I think, between him and Cristiano Ronaldo for who will finish as top goal scorer. And Tuchel is just I think that game against Liverpool, when they went down to 10 men and still managed to negotiate a draw and still managed to control the game pretty well, sort of shows the class that Liverpool are currently Chelsea are currently operating in at the moment. But let me know what your predictions are down in the comments below. Let me know who you are backing this weekend. As I said, I think the big sort of potential winners in terms of being able to put pressure on sides will be Liverpool, who will play first before Manchester United and Chelsea, and at the same time as Manchester City. So they won't have too much pressure on them, but they'll know a victory for them will certainly mean that United and Chelsea, they can't sort of mess up. They can't afford to have an off day and suddenly go a couple of points behind. So it should be really good. But yeah, let me know which team you're backing, what some of your score predictions are. Smash a like on the video. Do subscribe to the channel as well. My name is Steven. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll chat to you soon.